Well, hello, I'm Doug Apple, back with another special interview for you today. We've got some news headlines to give to you. In the end, we're going to be talking about the idea of the freedom to choose versus having things mandated. And how does that play out for a Christian? In this case, we're going to be talking with Mike Sharman of HealthCare. We've been talking with Mike. You've been hearing the ads for HealthCare as they bought a little airtime here. It's a nonprofit Christian healthcare sharing ministry that might be just the answer for you and your family. But let's look at some news headlines, and they do involve healthcare and health insurance. And Mike Sharman, we're going to dive into some of these things, but here's a big one. This ruling out of the Fourth Circuit, kind of in your neck of the woods there, and they decided to, at least my limited understanding, you can unpack it for us, to mandate that transgender healthcare must be paid for by the state insurance. So this is a government mandate, at least according to the current court ruling. You know, these things work their way through the courts. And they use this illustration, and I especially want to hear your comments on this, Mike, and that is, they said, hey, if the insurance covers mastectomies for a woman with breast cancer, like, you know, you've got to have this surgery or you could die from the cancer, they compared that to then the transgender mastectomy. And they said, hey, that's obviously discriminatory. That's the quote from the judge. Obviously discriminatory. I don't know if it's quite so obvious there, Judge Roger Gregory, but Mike Sharman, as soon as the government starts mandating that the health insurance companies pay this, pay that, pay this, cover this, cover this, cover that, the prices go up and up and up. And then also when they start mandating covering things that as a Christian, we stand back and go, wait a second, that doesn't fit with our biblical values. So Mike Sharman, what do you think about all this?
Well, the basic premise that we should be looking for as Christians in everything is everything governmental is having the rule of law under God. You can't just have the rule of law, otherwise you're going to have this type of immoral or amoral dictatorship that we just see here. And that type of idea is what HealthCare is trying to be an alternative to. You know, with HealthCare, it's a 501c3 Christian ministry that has as its focus sharing the medical expenses, medically necessary expenses for its members. And it's exempt from Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act, and it's specifically exempted under state law in about 35 states now, and essentially ignored in the other 15. So people who are members of HealthCare have freedom. And what we need to start doing as a culture is exercising our freedom muscles. Otherwise, we're going to wind up having this type of judicial and sometimes legislative dictatorship imposed upon us, taking away our freedom. So let's just take it from the top, let's say. So the Fourth Circuit Federal Court of Appeals, which includes a number of southern states, including my state of Virginia. So this Fourth Circuit decision covers them all. You know, Maryland and West Virginia, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina. It affects them all, and says now every health insurance plan in those states has to provide for this transgender program. So it means to the insurance companies, you no longer have a corporate right to choose what you're going to do or what you're not going to do. The Obamacare and Affordable Care Act dictated to you what you have to do in large part. Now this court, which is unelected, you know, a federal judge is not elected. They're confirmed by the Senate, but that's that. And on this one, the majority right now were nominated by Obama and Biden, Presidents Obama and Biden, and then the remainder were the Republican ones that had been on, you know, for a while now. But they weren't elected. So these few people really have dictated to insurance companies in their 9-6 decision. They've dictated to insurance companies what they have to do. And then in turn, the insurance companies are having to dictate to their insured, all their clients and customers, what they have to do. And what they now have to do is pay for transgender care, which is going to be not just the initial operations and procedures are going to be expensive, but the follow-up care as the complications of trying to introduce one sex into the other, that just doesn't work. It'll create problems down the road, and we already can see that from what has happened with people who have had the transgender operations or the hormone treatments and or both. So that dictatorship has affected not just corporate life but then the insureds. And the corporations need to be objecting. We as citizens need to be objecting. And Share HealthCare gives people a choice. And the choice is apparent too. The law of the harvest. If you plant according to God's word, you're going to reap good things. If you plant not according to God's word, you're going to get weeds that you don't want, thorns and thistles. So it's apparent in the pricing. Our price with Share HealthCare is $149 for a single per month, $249 for a couple, and $349 for a family of four, and $50 for every child after that. All right, now compare that to the price for health insurance before this decision. It's going to go up after this decision. But before this, it was $2,200 a month for a family of four. So $349 for a family of four versus $2,200 for a family of four. You immediately see the practical implications of living according to the law of harvest, planting what God wants, the rule of law under God. You know, we've been able to have legislatures who acknowledge freedom and protect healthcare sharing ministries and protect Share HealthCare. Way back when the Affordable Care Act and Obamacare was passed, we were able to have them put into that pretty draconian and dictatorship law a conscientious objector law, which specifically mentioned healthcare sharing ministries. Freedom is extraordinarily important, but we just don't tend to notice it until it's gone. And so we need to be exercising our freedom muscles now while we still can. And once you begin exercising your freedom muscles with your health care, or using Share HealthCare or another one of the healthcare sharing ministries, then you're going to be looking at, well, how else can I have my family be more self-sufficient, more independent, and living more in accordance with God's word? Because I can see that if I do, myself and my family will be blessed.
So let me give you another headline, Mike. This is from the New York Times. An article said, quote, "Navigating the healthcare system in the United States can often feel like being lost in a maze. What kind of a doctor should I see? Who takes my insurance? What even is a copay anyway?" And I want you to address this because, I'm sure everybody has felt that at some point where they look at the healthcare system and dealing with their health insurance, and it does feel like being lost in a maze. But at Share HealthCare, you offer something very different, and that is, I'll word it this way, somebody on your side. So talk about how Share HealthCare is different by providing somebody that's on your side to help you navigate the maze.
Yeah, we can be kind of highfalutin about it and say we have concierge service, or we can just be direct and say we have member advocates for you, and that's the literal title of their job, being a member advocate. One, they're your prayer support. They advocate with you to God the Father. But they're also your advocate within Share HealthCare. You know, if there's something you don't understand with Share HealthCare or you're having some problem, whatever that may be, they help you with that. If you're having some problem outside of Share HealthCare with your doctor, and more often the problem is with the doctor's billing company. Can we get the bill so that I stop seeing the bill come up in my mail all the time? Can you please just send that to Share HealthCare? That, believe it or not, that's a surprisingly common one. We just finished getting through having an anesthesiology company. It took a year to get a full bill from them. And of course, the patient and our member kept thinking, well, I don't want this hanging over me. I don't want this hanging over me. Right. We understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But this entity is not giving us the bill. So, and there wasn't any good reason for it. They just weren't.
Mm.
So the member advocate during that time helps do the hand-holding, helps pray, helps try to encourage things along. And in one like that, where it just seems to be an intransigent problem, they just walk alongside you, just be with you, which is a very important part, just knowing you're not alone.
Yeah, because anybody who's tried to deal with health insurance where you feel like everyone is against you, even the company you're giving your money to, and this member advocate is really something special from Share HealthCare.
It is, and our member advocates love what they do. Whether it's just talking with and praying with a new mom when she's just had her baby and working through it, or when it's helping them deal with a problem that just seems to, anesthesiology company, why aren't you sending us that full bill so we can just share it?
Mm-hmm.
Either way, they just love working with the folks, and they love their job.
Yeah, because it's a ministry.
That's exactly the way they view it, and that's when we're hiring people for that position. The main criteria is not what education do they have or have they worked in any sort of healthcare services before or anything like that. The main criteria is what's been your background as a prayer warrior.
Well, one more headline before we let you go, Mike, and this one comes out of Colorado. It says, failed negotiations makes major insurance provider out of network in Colorado. So if some people were already used to handling things a certain way between their insurance provider and a certain health company, then all of a sudden they are thrown into that out-of-network category. Why is it bad to be out-of-network, and why is that not a problem with Share HealthCare?
Well, it's bad to be out-of-network because then the prices that your insurance company says they will pay in-network fees, negotiated fees. They won't pay the excess. So you get stuck with what often is called a surprise bill, but is just your bill. You're stuck with that excess. And again, you had mentioned at the top that the theme was a freedom to choose, and a freedom to choose in accordance with God's word. Here again, we're having a dictatorship. The dictatorship of, and this is I think the second paragraph of that article that you mentioned, the two large healthcare corporations couldn't reach a contractual agreement Wednesday morning, meaning Anthem members are now considered out of network at all of Common Spirit facilities. That's the name of that group of hospitals. So these massive companies are dictating to their members, because we can't agree, you're now stuck with a larger bill than you thought you were going to have. Way back when healthcare was affordable, you either chose to have health insurance or you chose to make a small monthly payment to your doctor or your hospital, and that was that. And it wasn't too terribly onerous because healthcare wasn't that expensive. If you wanted to have insurance, you had insurance. It wasn't terribly expensive either, and you paid a small copay. My mom would always mention, I only cost her $5 because that was the copay on their insurance. And, the insurance was very affordable. But that was way back when. And now insurance is extremely expensive. These insurance companies, as we discussed before, are dictated to by not only the federal government, but all the state governments. And I mean all the state governments. They don't have a choice. If they want to practice in a state, they have to obey that state's rules. So they're stuck, and then their oligarchies, they're large, so they have an inordinate amount of power to affect people outside a particular small region. With Share HealthCare, you have the freedom to choose in accordance with God's word. You and your doctor get to choose what type care is appropriate for you. You get to go to any licensed medical professional in the world. So if you want to go to an MD, go to an MD. If you want to go to a DO, which is Doctor of Osteopathy, you get to go to that. If you want to go to a physician assistant, who many states now allow them to practice independently, you can do that. If you want to go to a nurse practitioner, and many states now allow them to practice independently, you can do that, and so on. And you can do that anywhere in the world. Your network is the world and every licensed medical profession. Why is that? Because you choose. Why should we tell you what to choose, other than we're going to say, as a Christian ministry, we cannot agree with you if you want transgender care. We're not sharing that. Mm-hmm. We cannot agree with you if you want an abortion. We cannot share in that. We cannot agree with you if you want abortifacients. We cannot share in that. Because the Lord tells us to have our bodies as a temple, we cannot agree with you if you choose to smoke tobacco. You just won't become a member. We cannot agree with you if you want to abuse alcohol or drugs. We just don't share in those things. So what do we share in? We share in medically necessary expenses, not things that you've done outside of God's will that is self-destructive. And what's the impact of that? We're $149 for a single, $249 for a couple, $349 for a family of four. That's Share HealthCare's monthly amount. What does the world do? The average of the health insurance out in the United States is $2,200 for a family of four. That's a huge difference that you could just immediately see. What's the impact when people have the freedom to choose in accordance with God's Word?
Well, if you'd like to find out more information, you can look at their website, sharehealthcare.com, all kinds of information there, or you can just call them up at 1-844-SHARE-HC, talk to someone in person, find out about some of these advantages, like it's not going to be out of network. You don't have an open enrollment time. You can go ahead and call Share Healthcare now. All these things we've talked about, sharehealthcare.com, that website. That's Mike Sharman. And for Wave 94, I'm Doug Apple.